Hey family, it's your boy Marcus Norman of Gentleman Style Podcast Show. And today I have the incredible honor and pleasure to introduce a Emmy nominated filmmaker who has been making documentary films for over 30 plus years. His latest film, Death and Taxes, which is being released theatrically in July 17th, and so it's coming out. This film is a must see. This film gives you something, it grabs you and it never lets you go. And it holds you and it shines a light on what we all need to be considering and what we've missed emotionally, intellectually, and really is a true film that is necessary for our time. And so I have the distinct honor and pleasure and I'm humbled by this man to introduce Mr. Justin Schein of the Gentleman Style Podcast Show and introduce him to y'all, the Gentleman Style Podcast family. Help me welcome to the stage the incredible Mr. Schein. Sir, thank you for being on the Gentleman Style
Thank
Podcast
you.
Show
That was
today.
really, that was a wonderful introduction. So thank you for that.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure. You are incredible. You are absolutely necessary, and you are a vision of what our time needs right now, what the people need. You've been doing this film for 30 plus years, and you describe that in this documentary. But can you tell our audience what ignited the passion for you to go into film despite your family's your father's primarily your father wanting you to go in a different direction? What was the emphasis? Was it the punk rock? Was it the was it just the industry, the who you are? Was it in the DNA? What caused you to go into film despite?
That's a great question. Interestingly, I'm dyslexic. So growing up as a kid, uh, I had, my first kind of love was and interaction with the world was visual. And I loved, picked up a camera and loved photography. And that was the way I started to investigate the world. And, I grew up uh, with two very different parents, but very loving, and I had a lot of privilege to experience the world. Um, we traveled, and I think that's one of the greatest gifts you can give somebody is to get them out of their comfort zone. But I always wanted to explore, and I found that a camera was kind of like a passport or like a key that unlocked doors. If I was interested in something, I could use that to explore it. Starting in high school, I started making films with my friends, and eventually went to film school, and have kind of had an amazing life traveling and exploring. One day I did a lot of, and I still do, shooting for other people. So one day I would be filming at the White House, and the next day I would be filming, homeless kids, and each one has its own kind of poetry to it. So um, I've, my dad definitely wanted me to go to law school like he did and like my brother did. Um, but to be honest with you, growing up with my dad was like going to law school because we argued about everything, and I felt like I got a good basic law education. But that's not the way the road I wanted to take. And to his credit, he was very supportive most of the time. He let me make this film, which really shows him and my mom, very vulnerable. So I think it's a testament to his love for me.
Absolutely. I you stole the words right out of my mouth. That was my next question. Do you feel that your father, with everything that because when you were going to college, all that that was incredible to me that he still supported you. He was very when he was filming, he was very well mannered. When you were engaging in conversations, it didn't look like he was comfortable on the camera, but he still answered your questions despite. And I imagine he still supported you all throughout film school, despite it being against the grain. Do you feel your dad loved you in his own way? Um,
Yeah, I mean, there was never any hesitation or feeling that he didn't love me. Um, he had his issues. We all do. He could get very angry. He was no different to. I mean, my dad grew up, in East New York, Brooklyn during the Depression, with very little, and kind of scrapped his way, um, with the help of the government, um, to becoming very successful, uh, as the head of Columbia Records and eventually the president of Sony. Um, but the toughness that he brought to the boardroom, he brought home to, to his little kids too. Um, but but I think and I hope that what this film shows, because it really focuses a lot on his, as he got older, his growing obsession with wanting to hold on to what he had, and wanted to reduce his taxes. Um, and there are stereotypes about rich people holding on to their money. And I hope that this gets beyond that and shows that his motivation, uh, was love and wanting to pass on the security that he didn't have as a kid onto his children and grandchildren. And that there was nothing but love behind that. Um, he could be a tough guy, and he was toughest probably on my mom. Um, and so the film follows that story. It's kind of an interesting and challenging film in that it tries to interweave this personal story with this kind of political economic issue, that we're dealing with today. So it was difficult, but I feel good about it.
Absolutely, as you should. As
Thank
you
you.
should. What I was yearning for, like I said, this film grabbed me and it never let me go. Once I got a hold of it, I couldn't stop. I mean, bathroom breaks, everything. I still
Mhm.
had it playing in the background, in my ear, something. I had to keep going. And to speak to your accolades again, this you have been sought after from the White House, but also you were there to record. You were sought after to record what happened after 9/11, and that tragedy, and that just speaks profoundly to who you are, and the passion, because those images, those video snippets were truly heart-wrenching and emotional. It was, the country was in an emotional time. I wanted to ask, what was the feeling or the goal of this film? Were you I definitely get the sense that you were really showing us, hey, we need to pay attention to this. This is an issue, and it's not new. It's not a new issue.
Mm.
Ronald Reagan, Roosevelt, Bush, Bill. This is not a new problem. And every political season, it goes ebbs and flows. And so this is not new, but there was something unique, which was the heart and the emotion behind it, which is not typically what you hear about or feel when you think talking politics. As soon as someone brings up a political agenda or a political theme or script, you instantly say, "Oh, this is charged with maybe racism or something else," but never emotion that comes to mind. What was your intention with this film? What were you hoping people to get take away?
I mean, I, it's funny the way that filmmaking works. At least for me, you, you never end up where you think you're going, and you have to be open to the experience, to the journey. I mean, I don't really want to make films about trying to prove a point. My desire and love for film is the exploration, um, and so I was interested in this issue, and which in 2017 the Trump budget was being passed, and I saw that it was going to have a real impact on continuing the wealth gap. between the 1% that owns as much as the bottom 50% of Americans, the top 1%. Uh, but I knew from making films that in order to make a film that moves people, you need characters. And I went out to try to talk to people about this issue. Nobody wanted to talk about it because, you know, talking about money is maybe one of the last taboos in America. Uh, and I realized that I had this footage of my family, um, which was about my relationship with my dad, but also his relationship with money and how that interfered with his marriage. So I decided to use that as the foundation. Um, I mean, my goal in making films is to show the complexity of issues. Like I don't pretend to have answers. Um, I think it's important to show that these issues that can be so polarizing uh, are actually much more complicated, and that we all have a lot in common. And you know, I don't really think that this issue and a lot of other issues need to be so partisan. You know, I think we all want the same thing. I think, um, you know, my experience looking at my dad's life was that I saw that he had lived what he thought was the American dream, and uh, that is not available to other people in the same way that it was available to him. Um, you know, it's just much harder to go to school, work hard, and do better for your family. You know, it's the United States is now 27th in social mobility in the developed world, and you know that's not, I think, what anybody wants. So I want, you know, my goal is to get people to think about this, to talk about this, maybe to change the conversation, and get some of the rhetoric that is so extreme out of it. And I think there's lots of room for compromise. I think that you know, we're the richest country in the world, and if the wealthiest of us pay our fair share, it's not going to stop us from being wealthy, but it might help other people live the American dream. So that's my hope.
Absolutely. I appreciate you so much. And that's what I was trying to figure out in your film is I was trying to figure out where you stood and why you and your dad would butt heads. Because initially, I'll be honest with you, and I I initially
Go for
when-
it, please.
initially when your father was saying, I don't think it's fair to pay taxes on the wealth that I've accumulated for you and your brother and your mother, and he didn't want he want I felt like he wanted to leave you more, and I was a little bit taken back, and I was questioning why did you why was that a point of contention for you and your father? Because he's saying I want to leave as much as possible for you and his grandkids. I mean, it brought him to tears
Yeah,
when your son was born, and when your brother's son was born, and you're a father of two boys, and like, why was that a point of contention, do you feel? Because I was looking for that. I was trying to
yeah.
understand where you were. So because there's always two sides to every story, and I want to understand you. Why
Yeah.
did that cause
I mean,
strife?
you know, early on, I mean, first thing is when I was young and a teenager, I was probably obnoxious and, you know, looking to push back against my dad. And I think that's natural in a way. And now that I've got teenagers, I can testify to that. But, um, you know, we had differences, as do most people. And, you know, my dad, in some ways was very progressive and liberal, but in the end, his politics were driven by his pocketbook, probably because of his childhood and his desire to maintain his security, and his, you know, his fear of his children having to go through what he went through. Um, but you know, and I had a problem with that. You know, that people were suffering, and we had a different idea of what government was for. And that's kind of the very basic American kind of struggle between like freedom to do what you want to do and a system that helps people. And the extremes of that are kind of fake. I think it all exists in the middle. There's no such thing as complete freedom or no regulations. Um, and I talk about it in the film. There's a lot of handouts by the government, and most of them are to wealthy people. All of these tax breaks uh, help wealthy people stay wealthy, and yet conservatives complain about poor people taking. The makers and the takers. It's kind of a false equivalency. Um, but one more thing, the real um, epiphany for me was when the year that my dad got cancer was the year that my first son was born. And I was kind of stuck in this place between life and death, and thinking about all of that, and my dad, and my like new role as a father. And you can't help but think about inheritance, what you want to leave your kids. And since he died, this issue has become worse and worse. And I definitely want to leave my kids, financial security to, and I feel like this money my dad worked hard for is precious and needs to be cared for and passed on. But I also think that we have a responsibility to leave our kids a democracy and a meritocracy, which I think is a very conservative thing. Work hard and succeed. These days, with the minimum wage is 7.25 federally. The cost of education, the cost of healthcare. Most people are just one sickness away from being in debt, and it's not sustainable if we want our country to stay uh, to maintain that dream. I mean, the idea of the American dream is flawed, right? We all know it. It's never been fair, and it's never been real for many people. But I still think that uh, Americans believe in it and want to believe it, and I think it's worth protecting, because as flawed as it is, there's still so much opportunity and potential in this country, and we can't just let it go. And I'm talking too much. Sorry.
No, you're good. Oh my gosh, you're good. This is I felt that from one of your very earlier films while you were in college, where you were in California, I believe, and you were filming homelessness. You were filming um young kids. It wasn't even adults. These are young men and women that are homeless, and just highlighting, hey, look at this. Look at what's going on here. The wealthy, the super wealthy, are talking about keeping more for themselves, when here's a young boy, here's a young girl who's hungry, but chooses to remain there because she said love. I go where people love me, and I feel more close to my family here than actually at home. So that constant pull, I feel it. I feel it with you in this film. I really, really do, because the film. Oh my gosh, the film was incredible, y'all. This round of applause for incredible work. It, I was conflicted. I'll say I was conflicted because of what you're saying. I want to leave as much as possible for many generations to come. Your father expresses that, many generations to come, not just one line or two lines. What happens after me? But then it's what about Social Security? What about SNAP? What about these benefits,
Yeah,
WIC,
Medicaid
food
is
stamps,
being cut so that
Medicaid
the we
being
can
cut?
so that so that the $2 more million can be saved by the 0.1%. So I don't think Americans really want that. I really don't think even the wealthiest You know, but
You, if you had if you had the economy's checkbook to
Mhm.
fix it, what would you do? If you had the government's open checkbook and say, "We need you to fix this for us, help us," well, where
yeah,
would you put? Where
I
would
mean,
you?
I think that first thing is, let me say, if there wasn't this problem that wealth inequality was causing, if there were, so if it was easy enough, not easy, but if it was possible for people to work hard, go to school, and get ahead, then I would say it doesn't matter. People should have it, hold on to as much money as they can. The system's working, but the system is broken. This system uh, was at its height. The middle class in America was created in the 1950s, right after the World War II, and the highest tax rate was 90% then.
Right,
Um, and that was under Eisenhower, who was a Republican. The CEO made a lot of money, but he made 80 or 90 times the average worker, not 800 times yet. So it was all the Great Compression because we created a middle class um, that and that was driven by the GI Bill at first, which paid for education for people coming out of the service, like my dad, and also gave millions and millions of families money to buy homes. And those homes have were the base capital that has grown over generations, um, that has created the tremendous wealth we have now. But that was driven by taxes. And uh I just, when you say, what if I had the checkbook, what would I do? I think that the problem is, um in his debate with Hillary Clinton, Hillary Clinton says he didn't pay any taxes last year, and he goes up
I'm,
to the microphone and says that
I'm
makes me
smart.
smart. Yeah, and that's, maybe that makes him smart. I don't know. Like, it's one of his aides had said only morons pay the estate tax. So I don't think you have to be that smart to get around it, because there are loopholes you could drive a truck through. It's so easy to avoid that it's almost, non-existent. So I think, if you want to have $15 million exemption is what they have now per person. So a couple, me and my wife, can leave $30 million to our kids without any tax. Maybe that's too much. Maybe that's perfect. I think we should have that conversation. But the problem is that that so many people pay nothing after that, because you create trusts. There's all these loopholes. Something called the stepped up basis, which allows you to um, buy stock and hold on to it, and then give it to your kids and not pay any tax. So most of the wealth that's being transferred now is not taxed at all. It's not income. Uh, Um, so I think we need to get rid of some of these loopholes. I think that there should be a sane amount of money that people pay when they die. Um, if it's 30%, if you have $100 million and you have to pay 30 and you get to keep 70, I think that I think you're doing okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Especially, I forget the program or the movement, but several major CEOs have partnered with this organization to say, I'm going to live off 1% of my income, or I'm going to donate so much of my wealth to
yeah,
organizations. And I think Jeff Bezos, Warren Buffett, I don't know if he's still in it or that was a Berkshire Hathaway move, but giving,
yeah. The
taking
Giving Pledge. Yeah,
the pledge, giving the
yeah,
pledge to say, I'm going to give away so much of my wealth, um, because I want to leave this world better than how I found it, and
right.
I want to give back. And
Also, because if you have $50 billion, leaving 1% to your kids is probably a, a nice chunk. Um,
more than enough.
yeah, I mean, what it Warren Buffett said: you want to leave your kids uh, enough money that they can do anything, but not so much money that they can do nothing. Right? And that's a whole other story. It's true. Like, what's best for your children, and so that they're motivated members of society. But yeah, I mean, there are issues that I have and that people have with philanthropy. I mean, philanthropy is important part of the system of taking care of those in need. But it shouldn't be a replacement for the government. Uh, and so we have this problem where people like Bezos say they give their money to philanthropy, to this program or that program. That's not democratic. That's this one guy deciding where the money goes.
Absolutely.
And it's also a big tax deduction for him. So 30%, there's, he gets a 30% tax deduction on that money. So that's money that could have gone to education or to whatever the government wants to spend it on, that doesn't, and that kind of creates a withering of government. It's underfunded, and people say, "I'm not paying for these schools; they're horrible." Yeah, they're horrible because nobody's paying for them. So it's it's not the solution. Um, it's got to be part of the conversation. But are we in this together, or is this every man for himself? That's a big part of the question. And you know, that's another thing the film talks about, is this kind of myth that that the wealthy kind of do it on their own. They made all the money on their own, and they deserve to hold on to it, as though you know the roads and the courts and the police and the stability of our country, which is created by the government, hasn't created a atmosphere for their wealth to grow. I mean, and
You didn't do it
in
by yourself.
yeah, and
You had help.
in 1916, when the first estate tax was created, the wealthiest people in the world, Andrew Carnegie, said that very clearly, that and we're very much in favor of it, that like nobody does it alone. It's a product of society, and because of that, you should give back some amount. um yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. A true heart of gold, y'all. A true heart of gold. I really, this, like I said, and I'm gonna continue to say, this is necessary. This is perfect timing, and this is really what we need to see. This is all what we need to see right now to bring things back. I feel back into perspective. I I I am very torn when it comes to talking about wealth, and because people still immigrate here. People still, despite whatever America's got going on, people still leave their homelands to come to the United States because it is better than most of the economy out there. And so, to that effect, you're right. Let's have the conversation so we can make this utopia and make it better. Why are we not having the conversation, and more people, and you film people throughout the film is like, no, no more taxes, or no 90% tax, no. And then you have others, but what you don't hear about is the givers. You don't hear about the people behind the scenes who are keeping the economy, investing in the economy. I was walking at a park one day, my fiance and I walking on a park one day, and there was a bench in the park. It had been donated by a philanthropist and his family, and it said the name of the family. And we were winded, we were tired, and here we are reaping the benefit of someone who may be wealthy, maybe doing well, but gave back, chose to give back. And what you're saying is, if we have more of those conversations, imagine what else we could do at this beautiful park. Imagine what we could do across the globe if we just have the conversation. And I can't imagine someone saying, "Listen, I don't want to tax you more because you're wealthy, but can we lock arms? Can we work together? We really need this school system. We really need this education system. We really need these things in America to make it better." I don't think anybody be opposed to that conversation.
Mm.
I find that hard to believe.
And I agree, and I think that, I mean, one of my other real hopes for this movie is, to show that even though my dad and I disagreed about certain things, that we could still respect each other and love each other, and it didn't, it didn't drive a wedge between us. And at this moment in time, there are plenty of families that don't want to go to Thanksgiving because you don't want to sit across from, you know, that guy on the other side of the table that voted for somebody else. And I mean, I get it. I get it because it's gone to a very toxic and scary place. But I mean, I'm hoping we can pull back. And I think, I mean, as horrible as this budget that just passed is, I think what's good about it is that it's so clear, that where the priorities are, by the people that passed it, and there's no hiding it. And so now we can hopefully uh, vote based on our feelings about that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You're right. Someone said to me a couple weeks ago, they're like, listen, our president, he doesn't hold back. He lets you know exactly who he is. There's no, he doesn't hide anything. He doesn't sugarcoat anything. He tells you exactly who you are, and he shows you who you are. So make a decision, right? There's no, you don't have to second guess what he's about or what's on his mind or what his agenda is. You know exactly who he is, and make your decisions off of that. I I give so much praise to you because I want to talk about this scene in the movie. Your parents split. That tore me. And the way, yes, your father, you need some credit too, sir, because you held your, I would be in tears. I would be broken up, torn up. I wouldn't know if I could continue to move forward. But you pressed on and recorded and stayed diligent. And today it's thundering, y'all, despite whatever was going on. And they split for that brief moment, that time. You still kept going. How did you do that? How did you get through that? Because
Well,
I know that couldn't have
I
been easy.
wasn't a kid. I mean, they had a rocky relation. They're very different, in their personalities. I mean, but in the end, they loved each other. But
Yes.
over the years, there were moments of turbulence, and this finally happened, and I was in my 20s, and um, so that was easier. But also, it was bittersweet because um, it was also a victory for my mom, who was standing up for herself for the first time, in a major way, saying, "I'm not going to just go with your program. I'm not going to live in Florida and give up." My mom's a wonderful professional dancer her whole life, and she needed that's such an important part of her life, and she wasn't going to give it up. And she needed my dad to compromise, and she held her ground. And so when that happened, and she said, "I'm not going to Florida with you," there was part of me that embraced her for that, because she was doing what she needed to do. And then I was worried about my dad, who, this monster, this strong man, all of a sudden had his tail between his legs. And I worried about him because, as I said in the movie, he could run $1 billion company, but he didn't know how to make a sandwich. And so, I did film with him, but I also went down with him and I taught him how to cook dinner and do his laundry. Um,
You did?
so I did. And because as wealthy as he wasn't going to pay for somebody else to do that for him. um so
Why did
uh
you do that? Because you have siblings. What? And then again, the tension between your dad earlier on. Why did you do that? You didn't.
I
You.
mean, my dad and I, even though we fought and he could be very, he had some anger issues. There was always love, and always, we always came, that bond was never broken. So I mean, I did it because my brother at the time, I think had young children, and he had he was a lawyer, and I'm a filmmaker. I mean, I wanted to film it, but it's also part of my personality. I'm like a caretaker to a degree, but uh, and it was fascinating to. I mean, I spent 27 hours in a car with my dad, asking him questions. It was a pretty amazing experience, not unlike the 9 months that he was in bed dying. As horrible as that was, it was like a very special time where we got to spend together, and made sure that nothing was unsaid, which is important.
Absolutely. Absolutely. How did you know? How did you know to record? You caught beginning, middle, and then the inevitable unfortunate end, the sad end of your father. But how did you know, hey, this is I need to start rolling. I need to start because like I'm saying, this is before college. You were recording, you were filming, you were
Yeah, well, I was. I mean, a film is a construction, and I would like to pretend that I did it on my own, but I have wonderful editors, and I had a close friend who was a co-director, Robert Edwards, and so I was so close to this material. I mean, I did all the filming on my own uh, 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 until we started in 2017, but it's assembled, and I had as you said, there's animation. I had amazing composer do the score to this, which is really adds so much to it. Wonderful jazz score, um, and so the 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 story is a creation in the edit room, and so I had a lot of great help. And Yeah, I'm excited actually that the score is being released uh, in a couple weeks. Is really good. I had bonded with my dad over jazz. I mean, we fought a lot about a lot of things, but there was a time when I realized we needed to find some common ground, and we both love jazz. And he we went to see like the Mingus Big Band together in New York, and we listened to jazz. I went to see Dan Getz with him, and so when I started making the movie, I used all that jazz. That's amazing. Um, but I realized at some point that it was going to cost me an arm and a leg to use it, and so I hired my friend who had scored one of my other films, and he had to replace Miles Davis and John Coltrane, which is hard work to do, but he did a great job. His name's Bobby Johnston.
shout out to everyone. Incredible, incredible team. Incredible team. Can Are you able to share budget? Are you able to talk budget at all? Like
Sure. I mean,
what you projected to spend? Did you overshoot? Did you undershoot? Budget
yeah, no,
wise?
I mean, this was really a labor of love. So, I mean, it took place over, more than a decade and so much of it was in kind. I mean, the reason I could do it was because I am a cinematographer. I have equipment. I shot it and directed it and wrote it. But these things are expensive, and you know, uh, I got some grants, but because of the subject matter, my other films were mostly paid for with grants, and this one I was like, I'm gonna spend my own money on most of it. It's more than $500,000. This film costs. Um,
You used your money for this.
I did.
Wow. Wow, 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 wow.
I mean, there's a lot of people out there trying to make important movies, and this was something that I felt like I had to do, and I wasn't going to be like, oh, this is a film about me and my wealth. Can you give me some money? So yeah, I mean, for the most part, it was, and I was working on other things. I'm a cinematographer. I take jobs and get paid, and my wife's a filmmaker, and my dad. Uh, there's a moment in which you mentioned when I was a freshman in college when he sent me this letter
Yes.
about his life and how he had never truly been happy, and he wanted to for his kids to be happy. And in some ways, I took that as a kind of permission for me to make this movie. He was saying, "Do what you have to do," and so whenever I spent lots of sleepless nights. I do on most of my movies, wondering what I get myself into. Um, but I always go back to that letter in terms of this movie. I'm trying to do what he wanted me to do, and I'm trying to do something that I think is important. So yeah.
Did your dad ever invest? Did he ever buy a camera? Or I remember a scene where he's like, "You're wasting film."
Yeah,
Right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Did your dad ever invest in your filming? Any of your
Yeah, I
filming?
mean, he bought my first camera, which was like a used camera because he had worked at Sony, and so he still had connections. So he got me when I got out of film school, like a used camera, which cost a lot of money. But back then, you could have a camera for 10 years and keep using it and renting it out every day. So that, I mean, technology has changed, and but yeah, he was always uh, wanted to make sure that I was working hard and that I wasn't wasting money. But if I needed something, he was there. So uh, yeah, it's interesting, and it's interesting also what you think about your dad and your parents and how you try to be different and try to you look at them and say, I'm going to take this part, but I'm going to try not to be like that. And that's part of your inheritance. Like I have some of his anger, but I've kind of I feel like I've really worked on it. And he talks about how when he was a kid his dad used to beat the heck out of him. Um, and I complain about my dad's anger, but it was all verbal. He made progress from his father. He never raised a hand to us. Um, and so that's what life is. If you're kind of conscious and working hard to be a better person, hopefully you're making progress.
How has that impacted you as a father, as a husband, in the way you parent and the way you love your family? Do you want your kids, your boys, to take the hard road and, hey, earn what you keep, right? Go out there, kill it, drag it home, bring it back. Or do you want something different for your family? Do you want something different for them? How has that impacted you in continuing this line and this generation of moving forward, being better
Yeah,
than our parents? How do you parent today?
I mean, I want a lot of the same things that I believe my parents taught me and wanted, which is your kids to be um, tuned into the world around them, to be empathetic, to understand that they have a responsibility to be a good person, to work hard, to um, contribute. Uh, and I also want them to have the security that so that they don't have. I mean, the thing about not having money is, I believe the worst part is the stress that it causes.
Yes.
And to be able to go to college and not have to worry about being buried in debt is a wonderful thing. But it's hard, as a parent who has the ability to offer your my kids these things. You want to you also want them to struggle a little. I mean,
Mm.
struggle is a part of life, and people that don't struggle, I think, have suffer for it. you can't appreciate what you have if you don't earn it in some way. So yeah, my kids are uh, have done some work. I mean, they're 14 and 17, and they will continue to. And they're not going to be uh, handed a suitcase full of cash. They need to get a job. They need to work hard, and if they're not working, they need to be doing something um, productive for society. You know, so
So
um,
no sitting around, no sitting around.
no sitting around.
Wait,
No, no sitting around. That's definitely something my dad said. He's like, if you need to if you're going to go to grad school, go to grad school, or get a job. Yeah, no, no coasting. And as I said, like part of that is, my dad. He grew up like sleeping in the same bed with his brother. Um, Ended up on Park Avenue, like he moving on up, like the Jeffersons. But he was always the Brooklyn kid, screaming and yelling in his undershirt. And so there's something grounding about that. uh, and Yeah, it was interesting, and I try to not make things too cushy for my family, but it's hard. It's hard. I mean, I'm not going to complain. Um, but yeah, I mean, my kids have. I forget it.
no,
You go.
no. You're saying exactly what needs to be said. I think you're saying it right. You need to go through some hard times. You need to build up some endurance. You need to build some grit. You need to experience certain things that I can't. A parent, a father, a mother can't tell you. I can't tell you don't stick the fork in this electrical outlet. I can say that till the cows come home. But some things in life you have to just experience. And
Yeah,
I can't teach you that. I can't write it down for you enough times. You just have to go through it. And as long and I think as parents we strive to I think more parents, right, need to strive for what you're saying and what you're teaching in this film, which is we can expose our children to the hardships in a controlled way. I don't need to just cut you loose and let all manner of disaster overtake my children, but I can control if I can control it. If I can control how you move through life and have these control instances and examples of life hitting you hard, it makes you better and it makes you stronger. The example, two examples come to mind, which is one example I heard from another gentleman who's a financial advisor, and he said he wants when he gets old, we're not having enough children. That's another problem in our economy for another story. We're not having enough babies to replace ourselves. And so one of the things he said that we can do as a society is mom and dad have the big house and the children are having a hard time primarily growing up in this 1 bedroom 2 bedroom apartment, so they're not having enough kids because they don't have the space. Well, why don't mom and dad who don't need a big house move into the apartment and have the kids move into the house so they can have all the room, all the space, and be able to have as many children as they want and be comfortable and not stressed out about, oh my gosh, the water heater broke, this broke, that broke. That's one story that comes to mind. And we're the parents, as parents, we're controlling the hardships. I can control, hey, yes, the pipe did rupture, but it's in the family house, so how do we work through it as a together? That's a controlled disaster, but we can control it. And so you're totally right. I think we can control. We want our kids to be exposed to the hardships, but in a controlled way, right?
yeah,
It's not hard for me to buy this duplex, rent out one side, and then have my child live in a duplex to give them that independence. But
yeah.
it's still owned by the family,
Hmm.
and you're paying rent, you're paying bills, you're paying water bills, and now, oh, dad, mom, I lost my job. Okay, we're gonna work through that. You need to be applying, you need to,
Yeah.
apply for unemployment, but you're at home. You're in our
Yeah,
home.
I mean, the most important thing you're talking about here, I mean, is that you're involved. And you're there. It's a family. You're there for each other. Um, Yeah, I mean, that's certainly essential. Um, but it makes me think of this story in the film where I grew up in this. I mean, it was the '70s in New York, so it was still gritty, but this very posh neighborhood. But I had to get to my fancy school. I had to drive every day through the inner city of New York, and um, looking out that window and seeing what I saw was as much part of my education as any kind of books I read at school. Because I realized literally 10 blocks from my house, like people were suffering. And nobody talked about that in school, or not enough. And that's, I mean, that was part of what lit the fire in me to become a filmmaker too. I had all these questions that were not being answered. Within this, we're striving for a better world, a better society for racial justice, but clearly it wasn't working. Um, so, and all of this is part of it. Taxes are part of it too.
Yes, sir. What was a struggle for you? What was a struggle? What's one? I'm sure you had many struggles. What's one significant struggle that you faced making this film? Do you remember? I want you to really feel through that. Like, so a
Mhm.
really, it could have been a day, it could have been a single event, it could have been a week long event. What was a really hard moment for you in making this film?
Oh, I mean, I think that, I mean, it's not one moment. It's just,
Yeah, yeah,
it's this idea of opening yourself up to something that is um, personal. And I feel like, uh, I- in some ways, that I'm opening myself up to criticism. As there's this great moment in the film where I'm telling my wife about the film, and she said, I asked if she was concerned. She said, "Yeah, I'm concerned."
hmm
But in order for anybody to see this movie, it's got to be more than just like some white boy complaining about his wealth. And it's I have spent a lot of years, decades making documentaries, and a lot of documentaries that are made um, for good intentions are about people in need. Documentary filmmakers want to tell these stories, and I certainly have done it. And this was an opportunity for me to tell a story about um, my family and um, you know some tough decisions that we have to make and some struggles we have between each other. I felt like it's an important and story that people don't talk about. People who have something to lose and have power rarely want to expose that because they have too much to lose. Yeah.
Absolutely. You nailed it on the head. You nailed it exactly on the head. This is you, right? This isn't someone else's story. This is your story. As a filmmaker, executive producer, wearing so many hats. This is you. This is your life, and I can't. When I've interviewed directors and directors before, but it's usually after the fact. I've never interviewed someone prior to the release of the film. And so you're my first.
Mm.
And again, that, like I shared earlier, that would be gut wrenching to me to have to continue filming despite this is happening to me in real time. Like that's you in real time. That's hard. That's really hard. And to get so personal and to get so granular and share a piece of yourself in it is why I wanted to go to the moon and back.
Mm. Well, I'm so glad that you dug it. I mean, um, you know, the last film that I made was also not intentionally. I didn't start out, but it was very personal in that I was making a film about a friend who was an anti-war activist in the '60s, and in the middle of the filming process, he told me that he was planning his suicide. Um,
Mm.
and
Oh, wow.
so I had to decide what I was going to do. I mean, could I continue making this film? How do I help him? Um, so it really became a film about our relationship and like how do you help somebody who's like in this state of depression? Um, and you think, oh, you can't make a more difficult film than that, right? But this one in some ways was harder because this one was about my dad. It was about me. I mean, it's different, but so I seem to have a knack for choosing difficult subjects. Uh, but it's what I do, and it's a challenge, and I'm so glad you like the film. I mean, it's not like a masterpiece. It's not, it's not Raging Bull. Or it's not uh, Apocalypse Now, but I think it's worthwhile, and I'm glad that I did it.
Who has been your biggest supporter, biggest advocate? You touched on how
Hmm.
your wife was against it, right? She's like,
Well,
I
she's
think
just cautious. um,
she had some feelings, but she was honest.
yeah,
Who
yeah.
has been your biggest supporter?
I mean, for one thing, I have to say my mom is unbelievable.
Incredible.
She she's turning 89 in a couple weeks. She's still dancing every day. She she lives
Really?
alone. Yeah, she's going to the theater and listen to jazz, and she's an artist,
Fantastic.
and she is supportive of me and the work that I do. I mean, this film shows her in a very vulnerable place, and but she really, I mean, she's come, and you know I've shown her the film as it's been put together, both her and my brother, so that it's important to me that they feel okay about it. If they have feedback, we've listened to them, because this is personal, and I appreciate their help. But yeah, I mean, my mom certainly, and uh, Bob Edwards, who helped me make this movie. Also, I don't think I could have done it without him. He's a you know he's a great friend and filmmaker. So uh, yeah, I mean, my whole family, and it's it's been interesting. My dad passed away in 2008, and I feel like I've spent a lot of time with him in the making of this movie, which has been a gift. Um, and my hope is that maybe this will open some conversations between people about some of these things, about who we are as a people, and what our responsibility is, if we're lucky enough to have uh, more than we need, to make sure that our neighbors are not suffering.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Take advantage of the advantages. If you had to guess what 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 that meant, if you had to guess, I know it's impossible. If you had to guess, what did you think that meant?
And let me explain. That was my dad, in his, just as he was getting sick, had a stroke, and my brother went to see him in the hospital, rushed to the hospital, and that's what he was saying. He was repeating this phrase and nobody had heard it before, and nobody knew quite what it meant. And the next day, my dad was back to himself, and didn't remember it, but it's kind of very quintessential. Um, Harvey, that's his name, Harvey Schein. I believe he was saying, you need to appreciate what you have and hold on to it and grow it and pass it on. Um, it was about, it wasn't, it could be looked at as, um, being greedy, like you're in a position of power and you have to take advantage of it. But I don't think that that's who he was. I mean, it was about, um, taking advantage of everything that the blessings that you have, um, and passing them on.
Absolutely. What do you think Dad would say if he saw the movie today?
He would say, I hope it does well in the box office. He would. That's a great question. I mean, I hope that he would be feel honored, because in some ways it really is a love letter to him, uh, so yeah, I hope he would be proud, and I couldn't have done it without him. He wanted to be remembered, and hopefully this will help that take place.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Sir, you are phenomenal. And unfortunately, y'all, this has been an incredible conversation, but we are out of time. We have to let this incredible man go. He has many more blockbusters to release, and he has to change the world as he already has and continue to change the world and create impact, sir. How can people connect with you? How can people connect with the film? How can people find the film
Thank you.
as this upcoming release on
Yeah.
July 17th?
July 17th, it's going to be opening up in New York at the IFC Theater for a week. And we're going to have some interesting speakers afterwards. And then it's going to be in LA on the 25th for a week. It's going to play all over the country here and there. And then it'll be streaming in the fall. You can go to deathandtaxesfilm.com. We're also on Instagram and Facebook. And sign up to our mailing list, and you'll get all the info. Yeah, it's you work so hard on a film and you think you're done, but no, this is just the beginning of its life out in the world. And this is a moment where I think the world could use it. So hopefully it'll have a good life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. This has been an incredible conversation. This is an incredible man leaving, creating legacy and destiny. And I know your dad would be proud. Your family's proud. I'm rooting for you. I'm rooting for you. I'm rooting
Thank
for this
you.
film.
It's great to meet you. And I really enjoyed talking to you.
Absolutely. Great enjoying talking to you. Sir, I'm going to say this to you publicly. Never quit. Don't ever give up. We need you. We need you and everything you're doing. So,
Thank you.
absolutely.
Right on.
Thank you. Absolutely.
Take care.
You too. Thank you all for tuning into the Gentleman Style Podcast Show. I hope this message has been powerful, insightful. Go check the film. And for our audio listeners, www.deathandtaxesfilm.com. Check it out. Check it out. Connect. Get on the newsletter so you can see when it's going to come into a theater near you. Like we end every show. Take care of your friends. Take care of your family. And always, always take care of business. This is Marcus, your favorite gentleman, and the incredible Schein family, and Mr. Justin Schein, the incredible man, myth, the legend, signing off. Love you guys. Bye.
Take care.